Peace, guys. Blessings. So I'm chiming in because I wanted to touch base on this idea of the value of the dollar. Now, you guys should know, first and foremost, that the United States dollar, as we know it, is no longer backed by the gold standard, meaning it's not backed by gold anymore, and that is as of June 5th, 33. Of course, we could thank the President Roosevelt of the time. Now, with that said, guys, this fluctuation seems to have been pretty much stable across the board. But when you add in inflation to that formula, you start to realize that that $1 in America really equates closer to perhaps maybe even 65 cents. And that's no exaggeration. Guys, the value of gold, for instance, fluctuates substantially. Now it looks like it's at 1900 or so. There's been times where it's gone down to 14 and 1300. Look at the value of silver, $28 an ounce. It's $1 a gram, guys. I've seen it go down to 15 and 13, and people often say this is one of the better investments you can make. Okay, guys, and just a side note, gold actually comes from the sun, so it comes from solar flares. A lot of people don't know that. Glory to God for that. Anywho, guys, I want you to understand that the value of money is contingent on many things. It's contingent upon our gross domestic product, GDP. Okay, it is based on inflation, the cost of goods. It's based on tariffs. It's based off taxes. I mean, the formula is ginormous when we really want to account for every nook and cranny. Okay, so we see here that if we went to Europe with, say, $10,000, we would only get back $8,500. Okay, now if we took some euros and brought it back here, we get a whole 18 cents back on top of our dollar. Now that's something to consider. Okay, when you're talking about growing your family, expanding, and really planning for the future, creating a substantial nest egg for cases of emergencies and, in this case, pandemics. Maybe even saving for schooling for your children, medical issues, whatever have you, because we know that these bills can really be substantial when it comes to anything having to do with our health. For instance, a mere ambulance ride, at least in New York City, may cost you upwards of $1,000. So even if you're having a heart attack, cardiac arrest, you're probably better off just taking a cab, calling an Uber, if you will. Now, guys, I don't mean to make this video to downgrade or insult anybody in this country. I'm not saying it's a bad country. I say that for sure some ideologies definitely need to be tweaked, and the system of trickle up certainly needs to be changed. I mean, for God's sakes, we're chasing money, right? We're chasing cash, right? We call it getting this paper, when in fact, a side note, again, is that money is not even paper. In fact, it's made out of linen and cotton mostly. So if anything, it's fabric. Fabric picked by who? Because I understand we've been using this money since 1792, So well into slavery, okay? So I'd imagine the fabric used was picked by none other than all of our ancestors. So with that in mind, we are chasing, and let's just put this in perspective. We are chasing, and not only chasing, we're dedicating our entire lives 40 plus hours a week, abandoning our children and giving them to our oppressors in a lot of ways, trusting that they would teach history and not his story, right? Just so we could earn some money to pay rent, to pay mortgage, to pay off credit cards, interest rates. And if you know how their conniving system works, if you borrow, say, 10 grand over a course of, say, 4 years, you would be hard pressed to even get to the principal. Most of the payments will go towards the interest and late fees, if that is the case. But the principal, often within the contract inherently, it says that you can't just pay off this debt unless you pay it off within, I guess a month or whatever have you. And it's stipulated in the contract. So don't think you're going to get a come up all of a sudden and say, okay, I'm just going to pay this as soon as I get this money. No. That's not how it works. See, they're in business to stay in business. And the way they stay in business is they make sure that that noose is tight around your wallet, tight around your neck, tight around your life. Often you got to give them collateral, right? Assets. And again, it's tight around your house, tight around your car, and everything else. So guys, I'm making this video. Why? Because I don't know if this information is even being pondered these days. I don't know if anybody even cares to look this stuff up. I won't tell you what I'm considering doing, because I don't really want to be an influencing factor for anybody. I want people really to start thinking for themselves for a change. But all in all, I want you guys to realize that we are chasing money. Right, let's put this in perspective, guys. We are chasing money with self-portraits of former slave owners who gave absolutely zero hoots about the minorities. Now, maybe Puerto Ricans weren't here at the time. Maybe Mexicans weren't here at the time. Whatever have you. But we are all from one people. Right? Whether you believe in evolution or not, eventually we came from one bacterium, one fungi, one whatever. So we are all relatives in that respect. I myself happen to believe in Adam and Eve. So for the sake of my perspective, we are all children of Adam and Eve. Descendants, if you will. So when I see people risking their lives, risking their freedom, literally giving up their lives. I mean, it used to be that the retirement age, I believe, and don't quote me, was 62. Now it's 67 plus. My goodness. And we know when you stop working, a lot of times we become just stagnant altogether and we don't move. And when we don't move, what happens? We start withering away. All the pain that we felt before, any wear and tear starts settling in. Start seeing our local primary care physicians, specialists. All of a sudden we got osteoporosis. We're seeing podiatrists, got arthritis, high blood pressure, diabetes, hypertension. Of course, I just said that. Cardiovascular issues, stress, anxiety, depression, and we get, dosed with a slew of cocktails, right? And who knows if they're even looking into the chemical reactions of these medications that they're prescribing. But not once will you hear your doctor say, hey, increase your vitamin C intake, eat a few more oranges, eat some more bananas, get some potassium, supplement with a multivitamin. No. And I've done a stint working at a pharmacy. And when I say a stint, it was a short stint for the record. But I did garner a bunch of information on the way the system works. And I tell you, It's money, 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 money. Okay? They're charging you all kinds of different prices for all kinds of different drugs. And whether it's generic or the real deal, some of them, just to get a generic version, you have to wait 10 or so years before the patent allows for a generic brand to come out. FDA is another bizarre system that really just monopolizes and monetizes the entire debacle, like the whole ordeal. So this whole system is about the almighty dollar. So when I see people running to go catch the train or the bus because they have to get to work, I see people frightened at their managers and supervisors because every day they risk being fired or laid off or terminated. Right? I see a bunch of people worrying about this new call to end the extension of unemployment because they don't know what they're going to do. When I see unemployment rates through the roof, when I see employers not paying a decent wage, I mean, for God's sakes, if we just summed it up really quick, the average rent that I could think about in New York City in this case is perhaps $1,600, and that's being fair. 16 times 10 is 16,000. Add 2 more weeks to that, 2 more months, right? Then you close to 18 grand or 19 grand in just rent or mortgage, okay? And mostly rent because of the redlining. Many minorities don't have homes, okay? And the system of interest, I mean, you get a mortgage, 650 grand. By the time you pay that off in 20 or so years, the house might have cost you $1 million plus. So consider that, guys. It really is a travesty that employers don't have the decency to give you what you're worth, or at least give you something that you could work with. I said 19 grand just for your housing. You have to add in at least 10 grand for food and sustenance. That's 29 grand. You have to add in gasoline if you have a car or transportation, whether that's the bus or mass transit. You have to add another 5 grand there. So right now, we at 35 grand. Okay? And let's just stop there because I don't want to add clothing. Because that's another 10 grand. That's 45 grand. Okay? How many jobs right now can you apply to, even if you are qualified, are going to give you 40 plus? In fact, I remember having one job in the restaurant industry years ago where the salary was 40 grand. And I was like, what? I was so happy. I couldn't believe I seen 40K up there. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in the building now. And it was weekly pay, so I was super excited. I didn't have to wait to bi-weekly, which is ridiculous to me. Another form of oppression to keep you just above complacency. So when I realized that I was only getting $525 a week after everything was said and done, I said, wait, then 40 grand doesn't really seem that enticing anymore. Now, for the sake of argument, and of course, I'm always mindful of my time and yours as well. I see we're closing in on the 15-minute mark. I do want to finish this rant, and maybe we'll go for 21 minutes to be safe, but I want to finish this rant with this idea that entrepreneurship does exist. You can indeed do whatever it is you aspire to do, whatever craftiness, whatever your heart desire is. I mean, not everybody's meant to be a merchandiser, right? But we are all meant to do something for our own selves, for our own family. We owe it to our families to do something other than nothing. You know, often you hear women in particular ask, "Hey, what do you do for work? What is your field of specialty?" Notice they use the word field, right? Your field of expertise. Now, I always think about the field where slaves worked. They just want you in the field. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, I'm an entrepreneur, and they look down on that. Yeah, you better off being a drug dealer, a criminal on the streets. You know, because I mean, even a panhandler, man, they call entrepreneurs panhandlers, solicitors, barters, right? Traders. And it sounds like a trade tour, right? But this is what they do. You know, they use words, choice words that really demean the whole idea of self-sustenance, right? So, yeah, this is the land of the free. Do as you wish, okay? But don't say I'm not working when all you do mostly is sit at a desk for 40 plus hours a week, then go home and maybe burn 1,000 calories running around making dinner, or in most cases just spending your money on eating out. So you're either spending your money on rent, transportation, clothing, food that you buy from a market, which is grossly expensive, right? And void of nutrients. Forget organic, pesticide free, you name it. So we're paying premiums just to stay above float. Okay? So if this is not a creative way to push the minorities out, I don't know what is. Okay? So people, I'm just going to really wrap this up right here with this idea that $1 in America is not worth 1 minute of your life. Literally. If they paid you $1 a minute, like some masseuses charge, you know, I used to say, oh, that's a lot of money. Sheesh, $60 for an hour? But I understand. I understand now. The money isn't worth much. And when you look at a lot of immigrants come to this country, you know, what they do with their money, they send it to their country. So if they save up 20 grand in a year's work, they send it to Guatemala, Mexico, Salvador, Venezuela, Honduras, you name it. Well, it turns into something substantial. In fact, let's just do that. Let's punch in right here, 20 grand. Okay, and let's punch in pesos. Right? For Chilean, let's see a Chilean peso. Or, you know what, Mexican, because that's, I think, more pertinent in this case. Whoa! My goodness. Suddenly, you just almost became a half a millionaire. Okay? And I don't gotta tell you guys how much you can do with that money. Let's check out at least two more. Let's go Dominican Republic, another pertinent. Whoa, now you suddenly a millionaire. My goodness. Look at that. Let's try one other one. This is a little fun. It shouldn't be this fun either. Let's see. Uruguay. Let's see. I want to see. I almost want to press Uruguay, but let's do Cuba. I think that's a pertinent one. My goodness. Almost a half a millionaire. And it's been a steady increase. Non-stop, right? So, what I really want you to understand here, as we sum this up, is that people are coming here to make money and send it back to their countries because they realize that making money and living here makes no sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make dollars. Okay, guys? So, whatever you do, absolutely make it a goal to eventually leave this place. Okay? If that's a 5-year, 10, 20, 30-year plan, set the intention to get what you can and go. Because this country is becoming increasingly more oppressive. Their systems, policies, integrity, ideologies are becoming more and more stoic. Okay? More and more empathetic. Desensitized. Okay, guys? They're almost not really caring about you or what you do. And I just thought of another one. Let's put Riyal here. Let's see if I can spell that right. Riyal. Okay, let's put Yemeni because I think that one is more pertinent. My goodness. $5 million. I mean, everybody knows a Yemeni, right? Used to be that the bodegas used to be predominantly Puerto Rican owned. Then it went to the Dominicans, and now it's with the Yemen, right? The Yemeni. So, and that's fine. I'm not, talking bad about anybody, talking down anybody. You get what you work for. You get what your intentions are set for. And you get what you work for. So, if you see that, $20,000, just $20,000. So you wonder why people take jobs below the minimum wage. Where they take jobs where they pay them $400 a week, $500 a week, $300 a week, undercutting the American. And then they wonder why Americans don't take these jobs. Well, because we can't afford to take them. It doesn't make sense. We took a job that was paying $500 a week. All we'd be having is enough money to pay for transportation to get to work, to pay for food to just make it, and maybe a room to live in. And if you're single, then okay. And I know it's the case for a lot of men these days. Because the nuclear home, the nuclear family is, the era of the nuclear family is over in the minority communities. And you could attribute that to a bunch of things. But this slave mentality is no joke. Whether Willie Lynch was a real person or not. Some historians will argue that it's fictitious. But the truth is that the ideology and the systems are working. They still work to this day. And to sum it up, it's just basically get the man out the house, break him down, beat him in front of the kids, beat him to a pulp, make them lose respect for him, have him beg for help, for mercy, right? And get the woman to submit. And once the woman submit, give her everything she needs so she doesn't have to go to the man, whether that's Section 8, whether that's welfare, public assistance, cash, food stamps. But they have low-income housing, which, by the way, limits your potential for making income. So often, you take an apartment, brand new, prefabricated. You might as well not have no walls because, everybody could hear everything. Forget a quarter-inch sheetrock. Sheesh. If there's even any sheetrock, I'll be surprised. But you take that and it says, hey, income requirements, the max is $30,000 a year. So that's it. I remember once, they were giving out a raise to finish up the fiscal period, and it was a nonprofit, and One of their ways of dispersing the remainder of the monies, because of course they were being funded by outside entities, they had to get rid of all the money, so they had a standing chance to get more the next year. Because if you have any money left over that year, then they often give you less, because they say, hey, you don't need that much. You had this much left for reserve. So that's how it works, sadly. And they were giving out these raises, temporary raises. They say, hey, we're going to give you a temporary raise for the next 3 months, and then you may go back to the same rate, or we might put you up a quarter or so. And literally, you'll be fighting for a quarter for 5-6 years. I mean, people don't give raises, man. You know what I'm saying? And this one young lady said, no, I'd have to resign, to be frank, because then I won't qualify for my government subsidies. I won't be able to stay in my apartment. And sometimes, I don't want to give up the tricks here because, dry snitching, if you will. But a lot of people, man, they'll even reduce their hours a year at the end of the year just to give in, four pay stubs that, reflect a lower pay than usual, So they'll take a hit that last month or so just to satisfy the assessor or the broker or the landlord or whatever have you, Because if they, if they are making so much money, then forget about it. They won't qualify. So she was willing to leave her job just to keep her apartment. It's appalling. Okay, this is just another intricate way to keep you at or above poverty. Okay, this is just another conniving way to keep you oppressed. And they do it in an altruistic way. They almost say, hey, we care about you. This is social justice, people. We can't leave you on the street. No, we got to save all the homeless. When in fact, what they should be doing is a massive move to create entrepreneurs globally. Even send them out. Send them all over the world to work. And barter and do whatever they can for the sake of America. Whether that means charging them a premium for flipping the bill. Whatever. Right? But this idea that they just want to save you, quote unquote, right? And house you and clothe you and feed you. And now with this vaccine, you think about, sheesh, this is my oppressor here. Talking about they want to save my life. They got the cure. Man, I only could think about the Tuskegee Airmen. How they thought they were getting the cure. When really they were getting syphilis. They were getting injected with syphilis. And then nobody would tell you about Henrietta Lacks. May Allah be pleased with her. Right? Nobody will tell you about her. When in fact, the reason we have any of these vaccines and cures for polio and the flu and hay fever and everything else, right, is because she had an immortal cell line. Which, if you piled them up all together, they would circle the globe, at least right now, probably 10 times. Okay? Multi-billion-dollar companies have been started, laboratories based off of her cell line. It's called the HeLa cell. Look it up. And it's a great book called Henrietta Lacks. When a family found out about it, heck, they just wanted in on the money. And they wouldn't even do that. They gave them rather a seat on the board. Or 2 seats on the board. Woohoo! People, you gotta really understand that what's happening here is a diabolical endeavor. Right? To keep the status quo at bay. To keep everybody complacent, everybody happy. They don't want to make you grow. They don't want you to win. No. In their eyes, that's a sin. So, all in all, we're going to cut this off as soon as possible because I said 21 minutes and we're edging towards 30 minutes. But I really hope that Allah accepts this as a good deed and forgive me for any fitna, any wrongdoing that may come of this. Because really, I just intend to inspire and educate. Because a lot of people are not even aware of this information. Okay? So, with that said, guys, I'm going to reiterate. I really, really urge you to start thinking on an entrepreneurial scale. Okay? Because the truth is that they have laws like, for instance, I'll give you one of them. It's called, let's see if it escapes my mind, the cottage food law. Okay? Now, every state in America has it, minus New Jersey, which is bizarre. Not too bizarre, considering they were the last state in the union, quote unquote, to get rid of slavery altogether. But the other, I believe, is Hawaii. Don't quote me on that. But it's definitely Jersey. Anywho, to sum it up, you can make up to 50 grand a year under this cottage food law and not have to register with the Department of Health and everything else. And you can sell direct to consumer. Yeah, you can't shelve your products in stores. You can't sell wholesale or the like. But wholesale is wholly overrated in a lot of ways. I mean, you sacrifice a large portion of your profit just for the sake of selling pallets. So yeah, wholesale may be good in some cases, but not for the common man or woman. Yeah, you have to look into the details. Some foods are off the shelf, but you can sell things like honey, which never expires, has great antibacterial, anti-inflammatory properties. You can sell creative items. You can sell, baked goods, things that have low risk for food poisoning and foodborne illnesses. So yeah, do your homework on that. And the other thing that I just want to say, because it did come to mind, is, and it's quite sad, if you wanted to be a general vendor on, let's call it the street, which is, I guess, the word they love to use to demoralize the idea of being a merchant in the marketplace, you couldn't get a vendor's license because that list has been frozen, as far as I know, 20 years. And I've heard people say 30 plus years. And I remember, looking in, something inspired me to look it up just about 5 years ago. And it said that they unfroze it for just a month or something like that. And they froze it again. I'm like, wow, that's so sad. I mean, it's just like a yo-yo, like a game. Anywho, the people who have priority are veterans. So if you're not a veteran, you're out of luck, frankly. So yeah, they make it hard for you to survive on your own out here. Why? Because they want you to hit the field. Excuse the sirens in the background. We're gonna wrap this up. But guys, understand that this is what's happening. People are coming here and taking whatever they can and everything they can and sending it back to their countries where they're living large. Imagine 5 million Yemeni riyal. My goodness. And 20,000 to a U.S. citizen is nothing. I mean, you couldn't even live off of that. They say the official poverty level, I believe, is below 11 grand. And I'm sure that's changed by now. But even 20 grand is, really, that's poverty. Because you have to pay for food, clothing, room and board, you name it. Right? And if you have kids, you have school supplies, you have uniforms, my goodness. It's very sad, guys. So, I hope this was of some service. I hope it was of some benefit. And understand that I only mean and intend to educate and raise awareness about what's going on. for the sake of Allah. Because really I feel like a lot of us are just going with the flow rather than swimming against the current like salmon do. And they are often the more successful species of fish. Certainly one of the more tastier ones. And if we're talking pink salmon, one of the more beautiful ones. Right? One of the ones with less fat because they're more fit. I mean, that's just a parable to consider. And you're going to certainly get discouraged to go against the grain. Once you stand out from the flock of the sheeple, well, you become a target almost instantaneously. So with that said, guys, realize that our money in America isn't backed by gold. And that is as of, again, June 5th, 33. Okay, so that's 70 plus years ago, guys. So you gotta realize that money is backed by brute force at this point. It's backed by what they call our military power. And they use this selective service sheet, the list, as a means to barter and negotiate for money from other countries. I mean, they might go to a country and say, hey, we need $2 billion. Oh, country's like, hey, I can't afford that, man. My own people are struggling. Well, then they'll say, hey, we got a list of 200,000 people ready to be deployed and drafted immediately the moment you guys need a hand. So they're using the selective service list as a means to obtain funds. I mean, for God's sakes, look at the national debt. I forget where in Manhattan, but they have the national debt counter. And I hope it's still counting. Who knows these days? They just remove things without notice. And everybody's so meek and passive that, nobody even could test that. Because why do we need to see the national debt anyway? But it used to say, and I don't know if it's still there, I hope it is, but it used to say the national debt, and it was a number I could not even dream to read. And then at the bottom would say, how much would each family have to pay to contribute to pay it off? And that number was a number that I could hardly read. And one of our biggest debtors is China. So it really is just, the irony is really thick, when you think about it all. Anyway, I could go on and on with this rant, I'll tell you, but for the sake of time, for respect, of your guys, and of course I don't want to bore anyone either. But if you have anything to add here, any questions, any comments, any links, any experiences, if you did leave the country for this reason or a different reason, how is it going for you out there? And where are you? And any advice or whatever have you, the community at large will really appreciate it. Because we all we got, believe it or not. I know we like to think that our social media pages are one of the more important things that we should safeguard. Often we don't even talk about dialogues like this. We don't even like to promote friends and families, companies, or products on our pages because it doesn't fit the aesthetic or it doesn't serve your purpose. So, really, guys, I implore you to reconsider. I implore you to really think hard, long and hard, about whether you're going to stay in this country and why you're going to stay in this country. Because people are leaving every day. For instance, Guatemala, right? People are leaving every day for a better life. with the pennies that they're being paid here. And again, I'm just putting that 20 grand annually just for the sake of argument. But imagine you were getting 30 or 40 or 50 a year. Okay, guys, you can scale that up yourself. But this idea that we are working and slaving, and you pick your construction site. I mean, there's literally no Americans that I know of, no Puerto Ricans, no African Americans being employed by these unions. It's just sheerly Mexicans, Guatemalans, and South and Central Americans galore. You know, it's very sad, man. And I've come to realize that a lot of these positions, if you look around, you know, the Caucasians are holding the positions where the less work is involved. So they operate in the big machines. They holding the clipboard with the pen. They're holding the levelers. They're basically doing nothing, but getting paid maybe 2 or 3 men's salaries. Okay? But meanwhile, they got the minorities digging the ditches. They got the minorities laying the bricks, doing the plumbing, doing the electrical work, doing the hazardous stuff. And God knows if they're even paying them hazardous pay or whatever have you. Because another trick that they use is they hire you part-time so they don't have to give you the full-time benefits. But you get full-time hours, 35 plus hours a week, happily. But officially, you're hired as a part-time worker. So no, you're not entitled to get health and dental benefits. You're not entitled to get vacation pay. You're not entitled to get pensions, 401ks, or the like. You literally are just getting an hourly wage. So think about it. And depending on what state you're in, because even now, PA is paying people $7.25 an hour. How disgraceful. It's not like the cost of living is any better down there. I mean, it's in par with New York and New Jersey. I mean, think they had $11 minimum wage, you'd be lucky to get a $3 markup. Okay, $15 an hour is ridiculous for a grown adult. And don't be overqualified because you'll be unemployed. So that really speaks to how advanced they want our minds to be. How self-sustaining they really want us to be. So yeah, America may be the land of the free. In all facets, you're almost working for free. So let that sink in, guys, because truthfully, we are at a deficit. We are in debt by just merely staying here 30, 40, 50 years. People proud that they lived in a building for 40 years. I read once they said that the average person doesn't leave a 20 square mile radius in their life. It means they don't travel. That means they don't go abroad. They just stay from corner to corner, mall to mall, theater to theater. That's disgraceful. Again, just to reiterate, and I'm going to wrap this up at 45 minutes for sure, so give me another minute if you can. For those that are still here, thank you in advance. But this idea that we're sacrificing every bit of our souls, our time, our family, just for the almighty dollar, with self-portraits of former slave owners who gave a hoot about you and your dreams, hopes, and aspirations. You see, the American dream is for the American people, and the American people are Caucasians. Not Hispanics, not Latinos, not African Americans. No, Caucasians. So I'll let that simmer in. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out. And the opinions voiced here are solely my own and not that of Q Flux and Company. Peace and blessings and continued success. Stay wise and civilized.